Good evening, YouTube. Just thought I'd do a little informational video about myself. I said I was gonna do one. So today is Friday. My fiance just left. We went to go try to score a finch. It was in the previous video. If you guys wanna check that out. Yeah, they went home. Her and her daughter, Mandy, they headed home. But I was gonna do a video of tell you guys a little bit about myself. I struggled with alcoholism when I was 14. I started drinking. Let me rewind it back. When I was 2 years old, I lost my father. I probably just turned 3, I believe. I don't know the full story. I was just a little guy. I have an older sister. She's 3 years older than me. But I remember the earliest remembers of my childhood, I think I was like 4 or 5. I remember Head Start. I was in Newtown, North Dakota, and I remember the smell of the food. I used to get excited when I got to school. I was raised by my mom and a Marine. She married a Marine guy, and I considered him my dad. I called him dad growing up because that's all I knew in life. As the father figure in my life, I knew him as my dad, so I called him dad. And he treated me like dirt, trash. I believe, he was pretty mean to me, but I love the dude. I still love him to this day. He's an old guy now, His name's Butch. But yeah, growing up, he would do things to me that, kind of humiliated me, kind of put me in check all the time. It's kind of embarrassing and stuff, but, there was nothing else I could do about it. I just went with the punches and just grew up. And it was crazy because as I got older, I learned that type of behavior because I remember when I started having kids. I have 2 daughters. I have 2 children I didn't raise because of my alcoholism, But the 2 daughters I raised, I remember my oldest one, I believe she was like 3, and my youngest was 2. I have the 2 daughters. Right now they're gonna be 21 and 22. But I remember back in the day when I started becoming a father and, having my 2 young daughters in my life, I remember the 3-year-old, she went over and she smacked the 2-year-old in the face. And me, I reacted the way my dad reacted, my stepdad, the way he reacted. He was mean and he liked to holler. And I don't really remember him hitting me, but I'm pretty sure he did, but I can't, I was so young. I remember she smacked her in the face and I got up and I just charged at my 2-year-old, because yeah, the 2-year-old hit the 3-year-old in the face and I was like, what are you doing? I hollered at her and it made me feel horrible because it scared my 2-year-old so bad. And from that point on, I decided I wasn't gonna treat my 2 daughters like the way I was treated. I never ever hit them. I never ever spanked my 2 daughters just because of that fear I bestowed in my 2-year-old. She's just a little baby, man. And from that point on, I was like, I'm never hitting my children, and I never did. As they got older, I left their lives when they were 12 and 13. But from that period, I was in their lives. I never spanked them. I never touched them, but I did scold them when they did something wrong. I told them, I was like, that's not right what you're doing. You shouldn't be doing that. Please don't do that. Dad's, that's not right. I would tell him, dad, I would tell him my situation, like, dad doesn't approve of that. Please don't do that. So they wouldn't do it. I grew up, not so much as having communication in my family. I have one older sister, like I stated. I have one younger brother, and I have I believe five younger sisters. I'm not sure, but I left the house when I was 16. I went to go live with a foster mom, and the alcoholism just followed me. I would always sneak out, I would get caught, and eventually I got sent to treatment when I was 16. I did the treatment stint, got out, went back to foster homes, my foster home in I got sent to treatment again when I was 17. But this time I'm like, I'm a little older. I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to go back to that foster home. So when I got out of treatment, I left that foster home. I basically started couch surfing. Because my dad passed away when I was 3, he had insurance or whatever, survivor benefits is what me and my older sister got, my two. Because me and my older sister had the same mom and dad. So until I turned 18, I got survivor benefits, which I believe was about 400. I'm pretty sure it was like 400 a month or 700. But anyways, that's what I got. And I survived on that until I turned 18. Then when I turned 18, I got cut off from cash. So I had to bite the bullet and I started working. But the whole time I just kept drinking, and smoking weed, drinking, just getting in trouble, living on my friends' couches, staying where I could until I was about, I want to say 20. And I moved in with my grandma and grandpa, and geez, I just drugged them through hell, me being an alcoholic. And I would, sneak drink, I would sleep on their kitchen floor, I would sleep in my car. I eventually got this little side trailer that was out at my grandma and grandpa's, and I stayed in that. There was no electricity. We ran an extension cord over there. I continued to drink, get in trouble, got DUIs on the reservation in Newtown. Finally, my second or third DUI, my uncle came to Newtown from Montana, and he said, "You better just come home with me, you're getting in trouble." So I did. And home for him was Montana, where my real dad was from, the one that passed away when I was 3. So I moved back to Montana, and that's where I met my 2 daughters. I met their mom at a party. I had a party in my apartment, and I met her. So we ended up hooking up, and she got pregnant right away. Had my first daughter, and when she was 3 months old, she got pregnant again. So my daughters are like a year and 3 months apart or something like that. It's crazy. They're both the same age for like 3 months, I believe. That's crazy. But anyway, I stayed with her, the kids' mother. I stayed with her for 14 years. Within those 14 years, I was sober for about 8 of them, but I wasn't clean. Like I would smoke weed. I would just substitute one addiction for the other. I just stayed mind altered, I guess, just to bend reality, and that's what I did. For 14 years, I used substances in order to escape reality. I believe that it started when I was young. I found my calling when I first got drunk, and I did that throughout my adult life. When I was 23, I finally moved in with my kids' mom. Moved out of my grandma's from North Dakota, came to Montana. Moved in with my kids' mom, so I started trying to be a dad, and that didn't work out. I eventually started drinking heavily, and I moved back to North Dakota. Went back to my grandma's, the only place I knew. Pretty much drugged them through hell again. But this time, I tried to work. I tried to get a job at the casino. I got fired from there, drinking on a job. Tried to work at the little grocery store there. Got fired from that job, drinking. Just trying to sneak drink, put a water bottle full of vodka in my back pocket and go to work. I'd be fine and dandy at the first couple hours, but in the middle of the shift, I'd be, toasted, gills to the wind or whatever they say. And I just constantly just kept losing jobs, and just struggling with alcoholism. I didn't find the program until, I want to say 8-9 years of just struggling, just living on couches and sleeping on floors and just burning bridges. And when I finally turned 43, I was living in a car with my cousin. It was getting cold out. We had nowhere to go, and my auntie, thank God for her, she told us to come live with her. She said, "You guys come live with me," because I mentioned to her before I was going to go to treatment. So she's like, "Come live with me until you go to treatment." And I did. Me and my cousin moved in with her, but we were sneak drinking too. That's what alcoholics do. So I was getting inebriated the whole time. I wasn't getting drunk, but I was still drinking. I was doing my requirements to get into treatment. So the 2 weeks went by. I was supposed to get a evaluation, do my physical, get my TB test. I did all that, and it must have been about maybe 3, almost 4 weeks, I believe. And I finally got accepted to treatment. So I went to treatment, and I was there for 58 days. The first week was pretty hard because I was heavily drinking, and I went into detoxing. I was detoxing in there, and about the 4th or 5th day, I started feeling normal. So I wanted to leave, but the treatment center I went to was Raleigh, North Dakota, and it was, I don't know, 50 miles out of Bismarck, 50 miles that way in the middle of nowhere. It was old school, but there you couldn't just get up and leave, so that's what I did. I went to treatment, and my second week in there, something happened. I believe it was my first spiritual awakening. I was laying on my bed, and I just started praying. I didn't know how to pray. Like I said in my previous video, I had spirituality, but I didn't know how to pray. So I started praying, God, show me the way, help me, let me do this. I didn't even know what to say. I was just jumbling my words, and all of a sudden, man, I had this overwhelming feeling that things were going to be all right. I don't know what it was, my internal voice. I know what it is today. It was my higher power talking to me. Everything's going to be okay. So from that point on, I just sat up at the end of my bed, and I'm like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, man. And that's that feeling. I believe that was my first spiritual awakening, was in treatment, my second week in there. And I was like, man, I'm going to stick around. I'm going to do this. Whatever they want me to do here in treatment, I'm going to do it. So I started participating more in group. I started, giving my 5, 10 cents, whatever. Man, it worked out, man. I just ended up staying, and I just loved the treatment life. Like, this is what I need to do. So that second week in there, which was crazy, I had that spiritual awakening. I was sitting in group, and I got these papers thrown in front of me, and I'm like, what the hell are these? So I looked at them, and it was an application for sober living. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to sober. I'm going to go back and stay on my auntie's couch, because she said I could. I'll fill them out, something to do on board. So I filled them out. And maybe the 6th or 7th week in treatment, I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to sober living, man. I'm going to Mandan Hidatsa Rikra MHA Sober Living, the Sober Lodge, and that's where I'm at today. This was 2 years ago, and I came to the Sober Lodge, and I was scared as soon as we start hitting the outskirts of Mandan, out of Bismarck, North Dakota here. I started getting scared. Fear hit me, because I was like, man, there is liquor stores on every corner. There's beer signs. I was seeing the beer signs. I'm like, dang, just like that, I can go get a bottle. I could go get a tall can. So I started getting scared. And I remember we were driving to this house, and I didn't know what to expect. And I remember walking through the front doors downstairs, and I seen my, he's my brother now, I call him my brother. I seen Lance sitting at the kitchen table, and he's ready to do my intake, man. This boy looked mean, he looked like, God, I had that look like, I was like, man, this guy gonna butt heads, I was thinking, like, if he's gonna give me some shit, I'm gonna give him shit right back. But he was pretty stern about the rules. He was the lead, or not the lead house manager at the time. He was the second in command, and he did my intake. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So one of the requirements for sober living was to get a job. So I thought. So I got a job. My second week in sober living, I got a job, and I got hired, and I told Lance, and I was all ecstatic. Lance, bro, I got a job, man. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. Because Lance had a couple years, or maybe a year and a half of clean time before me. So I told him, and he went back to report to his superiors. My boss now, and my boss now, he called me on my phone, and he's like, I got you on speaker. I was like, what's going on, Justin? He's like, I heard you got a job, and I was like, yeah. And he's like, I was all happy to tell him, I was like, yeah, I got a job, man. He's like, F that, you ain't working. I was like, what the heck? Where's this coming from? And he's like, you ain't working, man. I was like, why? And he's like, well, because I've seen people that, come out of treatment, they get a job, and they forget about their program, and they concentrate more on their program than they do, they concentrate more on their job than a program, and then they lose all aspects of reality of the recovery program, which we stress today, you know, like you need this recovery program in order to survive. And I remember him saying that, and I was kind of mad, and I was like, man, well, all right, you know, I didn't know what to do. I was like, okay. Then I hung up the phone, and I was like, man, these guys better take care of me. You know, Sober Living better take care of me, because how am I gonna survive now? You know, you guys better take care of me. I was thinking about it. I was so pissed, man. But what happened was, I basically just started doing my steps. You know, I met my sponsor eventually. Like, you know, bro, can you sponsor me? And I remember he just zipped by, and he's like, yeah, you know, read this, read that, and give me a call. And I was like, all right, cool. I got a sponsor. I can get off a restriction, because you're on restriction for 2 weeks when you get to the house. And I remember I was like, man, I met my sponsor, and I didn't even get his number. he zoomed by me in a meeting. So I had to go to that same meeting. I believe I see him at another meeting. I was like, hey man, I didn't even get your number. What's your name even? He's like, oh yeah. And he gave me his number. So we finally met, and I started knocking out the steps of the AA program, and I got to like step 4, and I kind of stalled, you know. It's if you guys know about the steps, it's crazy, because you got to write down this list. And anyway, that's a whole nother story. The steps, going through the steps. I'm not really trying to promote the AA program itself, but you know, I'm just trying to tell my story. But I got to step 5, and my sponsor said, okay, clear your evening, because it's probably going to take a few hours. I was like, yeah, right, you know, okay, well, we'll do it on a Sunday. I believe it was a Sunday, because we used to meet on Sundays. So anyways, I went to his house, and sure enough, man, my step 5 took 6 hours, I believe. 6 hours to do my step 5. But it was crazy. When I was done with my step 5, I came home back to the Sober Living, and I didn't know how to feel, man. I felt ashamed. I felt happy. I felt ecstatic. I just felt dirty. You know, I just felt ugly, because all this stuff I just jumbled into my soul. I kept it in there until I did my step 5, and I released it. Let God handle it, like they say. So God handled it from that day forth, man. The next day I woke up, I was on cloud 9, man, because nothing could stop me. I didn't care what you said about me. I didn't care how you looked at me, because God had my back, man. God did it. To this day, God still does it, man. Like I said in my earlier videos, you know, first thing I do, I feel messed up, like, oh man, I gotta do this shit tomorrow. Excuse me, I gotta do this stuff tomorrow. You know, I gotta do this stuff today. You know, it's like, man, but I gotta pause and pray and let God handle it. And God does handle it. To this day, He does. It's so awesome. You know, without the program and the founding, you know, the father that I found, if I didn't have that, I'd be screwed over. You know, I would walk around with you know, just clenched and tight, and just, you know, don't talk to me. But to this day, you know, I'm free. You know, I use a walker. You know, I use canes. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm not ashamed of who I am. You know, I'm not ashamed of what I am. You know, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I will always be an alcoholic, and that's fine. I just, you know, I choose not to drink for that one day at a time. That 24 hours, I choose not to drink. You know, I don't care about the past, because that's in the past. The past is what made me. If it wasn't for the past, I wouldn't be here today. And I don't care about the future. I don't care about tomorrow, because it hasn't been written yet. All I got to worry about is today, right now, an hour from now. You know, plan. You know, I plan. I don't look forward, you know, because you can't control tomorrow. And with that being said, you know, today is Friday night. My fiance Dina is coming tomorrow, and I'm going to spend the weekend with her. She's going to drive me to my surgery come Monday morning. I got to be there at 7:30. They're going to give me a total hip replacement on my left side. But that's just the beginning, because I need a total hip replacement on my right side. But I'm happy, you know, my healing journey is starting, and it's just the beginning. You know, more vlogs to come, more informational videos to come. Like I said, I'm going to start interviewing the bros here. I'm going to interview people who want to be interviewed. So if you're out there, you know, give me a call. You know, we can do a call-in, whatnot. Anybody talk about God, talk about Jesus, talk about the good things of life. You know, I'm here. And now's the time to do it. Now's the time to get sober, you know, sobriety. Like my shirt. Anyway. But yeah, man, it feels so good to be sober. Free. Happy and free. Happy, joyous, and free, like they say. That's me, man. Thank you. Some good words tonight. And just thought I'd do a quick check-in. But yeah, thank you guys. We'll see ya. Have a good night.